welcome to the first episode of Art Imitates Life. My name is Xavier, and I'm here with Mike.
Yo, what's going on? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. First episode, I think it's only right we do a little breakdown of like what we do
Sure.
and why we doing it. And basically, Art Imitates Life is we're going to do breakdowns of the latest albums, shows, and movies. Anything that's really, created a big impact, that had a cultural impact for us, especially,
all the classics too.
All classics, yeah.
I mean, yeah, so I'll go ahead and get started. My name's Mike. Obviously short for Michael. People usually call me either one. But yeah, so I am in video production. I am a director and also a screenwriter as well. I've been passionate about podcasting and stuff for a long time. I've been listening to a bunch of different podcasts probably since 2016 or so. So I was like, at some point, I'm gonna have to start something just to talk about, music, movies, whatever. And it was a perfect opportunity to come around. Working with my guy, yeah,
No, I feel that, bro.
Worked out perfectly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember we both went to the same school.
That's it.
And
State.
For sure. And then I remember like one of the first conversations we had, it was actually about like the Cole album. One of the different Cole albums. Yeah. And then from there, we just always kept in touch.
What was that, probably KOD? Is that what that was?
Talking about all of them. KOD, 14.
Yeah.
Born Center, all them different ones.
We're going to talk about that one day.
Yeah, for sure. And, after we left Bowie, I work at a nonprofit communications associate, just staying in the realm of media, just doing me. That's really about it. Nothing crazy. I want to get my own production company going. So
same here.
Let's get it going.
That's why we connect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's only right. It's only right that this is the first topic we ever talk about right here.
Yes, sir.
And the first one we really want to bring up is Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing.
Yep. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. One of my favorite directors of all time. And it's truly a groundbreaking film. So I'm ready to get right into it.
Yeah. What's the main thing that you really got from the movie?
Without him,
I
mean, I don't know if I would ever be passionate about going into the film industry, directing, or anything like that. So that's the main thing that I kind of came away with. And also just how relevant it is to today's world. Honestly, a lot of it feels like it hasn't changed. And recently just rewatching it last summer, because I've seen this a bunch of times, but just recently watching it last summer, during the whole Black Lives Matter protests and everything, it just really opened my eyes again to everything that's going on right now. So, yeah, it's just the relevance. That's really one of the main things that stands out for me.
Yeah, it aged too well in a sense. I don't think it should have aged the way it aged.
Yeah.
But I think, in terms of Spike Lee, of who he is, I think not only about the art of what he was doing and the messages he was trying to convey, it was also how he did it that really made Spike Lee who he was.
Yeah.
So, going the independent route, going his own way, doing his own thing, starting his own lane.
Right.
I think that was what really, stood out to me. You watch the beginning of the credits, and you see Spike, Mookie. Spike Lee's in the movies when the main character is Mookie.
Right.
You see his girl dancing in the beginning of the opening scene.
Yeah, Rosie Perez.
And you see in the credits it's written, produced, directed by Spike Lee, he was doing that from the jump.
Yeah.
So I think that was really what really, separates him.
Yeah, I agree. And just kind of circling back, one of the main directors, black directors before him was Robert Townsend.
Mm,
I just wanted to be sure I got one of the names out there.
got
He
you.
wasn't the first, but he definitely was the guy that broke a lot of barriers for us. And he took a lot of criticism for how truthful he was in this movie. But yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I shouted that out.
Mm. Nah, dope. That's dope. If you feel like there's one person, or not one person, one thing that anybody should take from it, what do you think it should be?
One thing. Um,
There's a bunch of course, but like which
yeah,
one
yeah,
really stood
yeah.
out to you the most?
Um, really just the different neighborhood dynamics.
Mm,
Um, because what I liked about this movie is that they didn't just focus on white versus black. Like that's the obvious, and he did an amazing job of breaking that down. But he really touched on so many different uh, dynamics. With Italian versus black, um, Asian versus the Jewish people, um, Asian people versus black people as well, and it just he just did an amazing job of really breaking that down, especially with one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's kind of weird even saying one of my favorites because it's really messed up. But when they were just going through all the doing the close up shot, um, discussing all the different stereotypes and stuff like that, and using different racial slurs, it's one of the most creative scenes I think I've ever seen in any movie. And a lot of times behind closed doors, that's how people, from different races speak to each other. Um,
mm.
it's not always behind closed doors, but what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
that's how a lot of times we speak on each other. But yeah, it was just that's definitely one of the main topics that I think a lot of people should take away. Like it's so many different dynamics that goes into race and that goes
Hmm.
into conflict in this country and outside of this country as well.
Luciano Pavarotti, solo meal non-singer motherfucker.
You gold teeth, gold chain wearing, fried chicken and biscuit eating monkey.
I think to piggyback off what you're saying, the the main like thing that I noticed it was that it was getting hot.
Yeah.
And as it
Yeah.
was getting hot,
Mhm.
regardless of who you were, where you were from, you had to go outside. And when you was outside, regardless of what your background was, you guys had to deal with each other in some sort of way. You guys crossed paths in any type of direction. You couldn't avoid it, even if you were in this part, if you had a business,
Mhm.
if you had your own place, you just walking a block.
Mhm.
Even people who necessarily had quote unquote secluded from that neighborhood, like the guy with the convertible, he still had to pass through that
Right,
neighborhood,
right,
and he
right.
still had to deal with them, and he had
Yeah.
his window down
Mhm.
because it was hot. So I
Yeah.
think that was really showing like, hey, like regardless if you want to stand on whatever corner you want to stand on, it
Yeah.
still has to be
Deal
some
with it.
type of coexistence.
Absolutely. Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off that point too. Just you notice throughout the movie, like as it continuously gets hotter and hotter throughout the day, like tension keeps rising
Mm-hmm.
continuously in the movie. Like everybody, like you could just tell, and it's true because it's hot outside. People don't really have that much, they're not gonna have as much just patience with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, nah, like I'm just trying to get my job done. Like Mookie was saying, he's like, I'm just trying to make a living, what I'm saying? Whatever. Working with Sal.
Speaking of that,
Yeah.
what do you think about the whole business dynamic in the movie? And like, now there's a
Mhm.
lot of pushes today about black owned businesses,
Mhm.
making sure that, people are getting the same opportunities and entrepreneurship as others. And I think
Yeah.
that movie highlighted that pretty
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. just one of the scenes where the three guys on the corner, they were just kind of talking about how all the Asian people come in and break into those different businesses and stuff. They start up their own businesses in our communities or whatever. So I thought that was an interesting kind of topic that they were discussing. Whether it's right or wrong, it was an interesting topic. It was just funny that it was coming from them. Like they literally just sat there like the entire movie. Like, what are y'all doing?
Just commentating on the neighborhood. And I think the one guy pointed out, he was like, yo, why isn't that we don't have any black businesses? And the one guy was like, yo, what you doing?
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the first thing is like, I think before you can criticize like other people, of course those criticisms might be valid, but it's also that you got to be aware of what you can do and add to the equation.
Exactly.
And I think that was like, the biggest thing. And I don't want to go to the whole thing of the Malcolm versus Martin thing. I think we can get to that later.
Okay.
But I think the part that I really want to shift to was the part where they were talking about the wall with Bugging Out and Sal. And that dynamic of owning the business and making the business to what you want it to be, but also having to be aware of the customers that you're reaching out to.
Right.
And not excluding them out of the picture because you want them to feel welcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the best scenes in this movie. You watch Bugging Out and you laugh, because his hair is crazy, this and that. But a lot of stuff he was saying was true, especially in that scene. Because it's true, like you can't come in, to our communities and stuff and build up these businesses and this and that, and we don't even get any props for it. Like we're the ones that are putting money into your business every single day. So it's like, can we get a little bit of credit?
Right.
Just a poster or a painting of Muhammad Ali or something like that. Just somebody, So it's. I thought that was a really good scene, and
yeah.
And I think it's just real quick. I think it's always interesting. They always it seemed like it was a common theme to always use like maybe what am I trying to say? Basically, somebody that you wouldn't typically look at as the best messenger, but they may say some very truthful stuff. Because you look at Bugging Out, it's like, okay, well, he's not. And you even look at Radio Raheem, and a lot of people, we don't want to listen. It's like, no, he's got some truth there, though. He really does.
Okay.
Mookie!
So you know I'm still
What?
single.
Come you got no brothers up on the wall? Man, ask Sal, right?
Nah, I agree. I think with that whole scene with Bugging Out and Sal, they were both making points like, I put this, like, sounds like I put the work in. This is the business. And then Bugging. Yeah, like they weren't both could be right. I think that was the thing. Both can be right, but you have to be aware of, I think it goes back to the point of like coexisting and understanding the other person's perspective.
Right.
And understanding the dynamics that not one is above the other type of thing.
Yeah, I agree. So question for you. Who were some of your favorite characters in this movie? And why?
I would say I would say personally, I don't know if I have a favorite character.
Well, who's one that just
stood out?
To you? Yeah.
I would say Vito. Vito stood out with me. Sal stood out with me too. And that's probably why I was intrigued by the whole Sal, Vito, and Pino dynamic. Because Sal, there was moments where he was like, oh, he's not a bad guy. And then there was moments like, yo, this man needs to get out of here. Like he's a clown. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And there was moments where he showed selfishness and selflessness. And it like trickled down to like his sons. You know, Vito, who was more willing to be more open to the neighborhood than Pino. Vito was trying to work, you know, was working like, hey, I'll go walk with Mookie, see what he's going through, see what he's doing.
Right.
Pino, you know, you weren't having none of that the whole movie. Pino was trash.
Yeah, facts.
So I think it was just showing like how Sal instilled both principles.
Yeah, that was ingrained.
Yeah, like the love and the hate, which made also the irony of the Radio Raheem type of situation. So Radio Raheem, you know, that's what he had on his knuckles. Ironically enough.
Yeah.
And we were seeing which one was going to win. And it was a trickle effect. You couldn't blame. It wasn't one situation. You know, the police coming didn't mean that, well, let me say it like this. Just because those two had an argument didn't justify the reason for what the police did. You know
Absolutely
what I'm saying?
not.
So it was just like a trickle effect. And then that's why it was do the right thing.
Yeah,
exactly. It was like, yo, like, at what point are you going to go make the right decision? Or are you going to just go blow for blow?
Right.
Like, what is that balance?
Let me tell you the story of right hand, left hand. It's a tale of good and evil.
And what about you? Do you think there's a balance to it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know. I think you mean just the balance in terms of like
when to not take on something or like, you know, stand 10 toes on something, and when to just be like, you know what, let me step away. This ain't what we got to do. Being the bigger man.
Yeah, so it's honestly, this is just how I personally feel.
Right.
I think Black folks in general, and I'm not even specifically referring to the situation I was in the movie, just in general. I think we spent so much time being the bigger man and, you know, oh, well, you know, back down. And that's not every Black person, of course.
Right.
It's just kind of something that was instilled in us that, you know, we have to be the bigger man. So like, sometimes you gotta go for it. Like you can't just let these people walk over you.
Right.
Because they will. You cannot let that just happen to you. And you know, I just feel like sometimes it's almost too much forgiveness and this and that. But I personally believe in just standing your ground on stuff. I guess directly in that situation, in the movie, I don't know what really could have been done to like de-escalate the situation, but I mean, once the police came around, I mean, there was no de-escalating the situation.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. That's not what they do. So yeah, I understand why it definitely should be a balance, but I guess I'm just kind of past the point of wanting to let's just walk away. But that's just my personal,
right.
You know.
Ironic enough, there's a book that I read called The Sword and the Shield. It was about, you know, how you know, it was two timelines of Malcolm X, Dr. King, and how they was converging. And, you know, in the movie, you know, it showed them kind of like, you know, two different sides, but like a lot of their viewpoints were connecting towards the end of their life.
Absolutely.
So I do feel that in the sense of like in a movie or just in life in general, or just to what you just said in the sense of like, you know, historically, you know, we tried to be the bigger person type of thing.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Like, yo, we need to, you know, defend ourselves and, you know, make sure that it's self-preservation. If harm is being done to you, you're not just gonna lay there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, yeah, you're showing that you're human, but look how far you have to go to show that you're human, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. On the other hand, to know when to step away, I think that is strength. There's strength in that too.
I agree. I do agree with that. And I
Yeah.
don't want to make it sound like it's not, because it really is. It really is strength to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of I struggle with
Mm-hmm.
just I gotta walk away from the situation when it comes to something
Like in a movie,
that deeply ingrained. It's
yeah,
hard to just.
I know. I think that, you know, there might be less of reaction if you really have a deeper understanding. I'm not saying you. I'm saying it when I say you. I'm saying in general, people having a better understanding of like who they are and where they come from, and understanding like who you really are.
Right.
And I think that was like the main thing that I noticed. Like, you know, people coming together and understanding like, yo, regardless wherever you come from, we still gotta.
Yeah, you gotta come together.
Yeah,
gotta come together.
They always show that flag, the different flags, not just of, you know, African countries, but of the whole diaspora, whether it was Jamaica, Haiti, America, Puerto Rico, just different places where, you know, African people have been displaced at. And, you know, I think that was like a common theme of like, yo, we do have to come together and learn more about who we are. And then, you know, the movements and the reactions we can do can be more constructive.
All right, so a couple more scenes I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit. The first scene is the scene in the pizza shop with Vino and Mookie. They're discussing Black culture. You know, Mookie pulls him to the side and he's like, walking around here saying, you know,
Right.
you know, just all aimlessly. Who's your favorite basketball player? Who's your favorite singer? And, you know, this and that. And, you know, he tried to get off saying, oh, Bruce Springsteen's. And it was like, come on. It's Prince. It's Prince. Favorite basketball player is Magic Johnson. And I thought that was just really interesting, you know, because, you know, as we were saying earlier, that still is true. A lot of times people, you know, they love our culture. They love, you know, what we can provide for them in terms of entertainment.
Yeah.
But they could care less about us as people. You know, so I just thought that was a really good scene. And I still think it's hilarious how he tried to get off Bruce Springsteen. Like, come on, bro, we don't believe you.
How do you think that, you know, that dynamic of, you know, people loving what we do but not actually who we are, like, where do you think that came from?
I mean, that's stuff that stems back to slavery.
Yeah.
Hate to get so deep into stuff, but I mean, it is true. You know, it stems back to slavery. Even with just like the different, I can't remember the actual name, but just like the different fights and stuff that they used to force slaves to do, just for entertainment purposes. But, you know, then you still got to go outside and pick cotton for hours and hours a day, get whipped and everything. So it's like, entertain me, but you can't have anything to do with me. And I don't care about your well-being at all. So yeah, that's honestly what a lot of that stems from. And it's just been heightened so much more since then. And even to the modern day era, you remember a few years ago with, you know, LeBron No, shut up and dribble.
Yeah, I thought you was about to talk about the NFL.
Well, that too. If you want to,
Colin Kaepernick and all
if
that.
you want to touch on that.
I mean, yeah, it's the same thing of like, you know, determining like how, you know, they're quick to say, oh, that's un-American, this, that, and the third. Oh, like, oh, you're a nigga and all this stuff. But
Yeah,
you were not realizing the contributions that we made to this country by force and by our own will.
absolutely.
So, you know, there's two dichotomies in the sense of that. So I think that really shows that aspect of like, you know, we're still of, you know, the different things, you know, from jazz, rap, all the different music, you know, was birthed here, but it had
Absolutely.
African influence, you know what I'm saying? So I think that was, you know, that's what stood out to me.
Yeah. And also how he kind of tried to play it off too, you know, saying, oh, well, they're not niggas.
Yeah.
They're different.
What was
like,
different?
Yeah, it's nothing different. They're just exceptionally well at
what they do.
basketball or, you know, making music,
Mhm.
which they are, but they don't make us any different.
They still face the, you know, the same problems. There's still systematic things that are in place. So it's still there.
Absolutely.
And I know another scene you was talking about was when you know, speaking of like, you know, the shoe culture. Like, you know, when homie got his when Bugging Out got his shoes stepped on.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's me and my father talk about that scene all the time. Like, that scene is hilarious, especially like if you know how it was back in the 80s. You know, especially with, you know, him having a Larry Bird jersey on and everything. And it was Jordan. Jordan was like the black savior, you know, black Jesus or whatever. Running over my Jordans. Like, you crazy? Like, that's insane. And he was just like, oh, you know, this and that. You know, I'm from this neighborhood, and it's just so much to it. But at the same time, it is really funny. And I think that's like truly an achievement that a lot of the scenes in this movie are funny, but it's a lot of truth to them as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, you know, dark undertones and everything, which I always appreciated that with a lot of Spike Lee's movies. You know, it's not, you know, you get to see the realities and everything, but there is still a bit of just comedy that can
playfulness
come from.
to
it doesn't have to just be all dark and sorrow. It's like, all right, like this is just depressing.
Because at the end of the day, they were just living their everyday lives.
Exactly.
And it was just day to day.
Exactly.
Yo! Yo!
Yeah, so I know you want to talk about a little bit how that tied into gentrification and everything.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it does. Kind of, yes and no, because he said he bought it, you know. Let me rewind some. Homie said, Bugging Out was like, yo, you stepped on my shoes. Yo, where you from? Boom, 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 boom. He says, I own this house. You know what I'm saying? Like, his concern wasn't about shoes. It was about getting to the building. And it's just like, man, like what Bugging Out was focused on, what he was focused on were two different things.
Right.
And also how he, you know, how the value of something can go up depending on, you know, who lives there. Again, another systematic thing that's been put into place. So I just thought it was just an interesting dynamic between them two with the conversation. And it was just funny too, because, you know, the people in the background were just sizing it and hyping it up.
Yeah.
Then why'd you move back to Massachusetts?
I was born in Brooklyn.
And that actually just reminded me about one more thing I want to talk about. Just another appreciation for some of the stuff that Spike Lee did. How many young black actors he was able to really propel their career. Because Martin is in this movie and he was completely unknown at this point. Like nobody had any idea who he was.
Killed it too.
Yeah, it's hilarious in this movie. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson was unknown at this point, and obviously he became a star. And like I said, Martin became a star as well, superstar. Um, uh, Giancarlo Esposito, like he's in everything, and he's one of my favorite actors. And even outside of this movie, he, in my opinion, helped propel Denzel as a lead star.
Oh,
in Malcolm X.
This not just Malcolm, of course Malcolm X, but also He Got Game.
He Got Game, Mo Better Blues. Like he really helped propel his career as a lead star. He was a well-known star, and he had already won an Oscar for that, for Glory, which I think was maybe like a year or two before this. But yeah, so he really deserves a lot of appreciation for just helping propel so many Black stars into stardom. So,
and not just put them there, but put them in roles that really show what we go through in our stories.
Absolutely.
And being able to exemplify that and tell it out, create those different narratives and give a perspective that, it's not through somebody else's lens. It's through our own lens.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree on that. He just deserves his flowers. As I said, I've been
that's
trying
a fact.
to make sure a lot of our Black actors, Black musicians, Black directors, of course, as well, they really deserve a lot of appreciation for everything that they've done for us. So.
For sure. And we're going to keep giving them their flowers.
Absolutely.
Our first episode. How you feel?
It was good. You know what I'm saying? I'm really not much of a speaker that much. But I'm extremely passionate about movies and music and just my people.
Facts.
So
yeah, that's number one.
Listen, you got me here. I'm ready to talk when it comes to any of those topics. So
no, that's a fact, bro.
I think it was good. What you think?
Nah, I liked it. I think we definitely, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going, keep giving breakdowns, showing how it's incorporated into our life, how it affects us, and what we can do and learn from it, bro.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you, man.
Episode 1, Art Imitates Life, is a wrap.